This is Keyed In with Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. And now, here are your hosts, Max Rabin and Brent Jackson.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Keyed In Podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Mattia D'Affuso.
Mattia, welcome back to the show.
I'm excited to be back, Max.
You're my guest host today. How's everything going?
Everything is good. I'm excited for the holidays.
I think this show comes out post-holidays, but happy holidays to all our listeners.
Happy holidays. Well, Happy New Year. How about that?
Yeah, Happy New Year. Today our guest is Teddy Thomas. Teddy Thomas has started a new business recently called Diplomatic Quarters. Teddy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Diplomatic Quarters is it is a website, correct?
Yes.
And you are a consultancy, real estate consultancy service for people in the foreign service, diplomats, military. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the business?
Sure. So I think Diplomatic Quarters is a uniquely EFM driven and for EFM business.
What is EFM?
Yeah.
Yes, it is eligible family member, which basically means anyone who qualifies to accompany a government staff person on their overseas post.
Mm-hmm.
So my wife resigned right after COVID. And our first post together was in 2017 in Asia. And when we went, I learned that I was not allowed to work on the local economy, which I think is common for a lot of spouses. We're kind of at the mercy of our spouse's post and job. But I had been working in real estate in DC, and I noticed that a lot of agents, maybe like both of you, need part-time help, but they don't have enough business necessarily throughout the year to hire a full-time assistant. So at that time, I started AdminiSaver, which helps with contract writing and MLS and all the stuff that you guys don't want to do.
So AdminiSaver is a great business. It's been successful for you, right?
Yes.
So AdminiSaver you're basically like a remote assistant, but
Yes.
you have a lot of background in real estate too.
Yes. So I have a lot of background in real estate because of that. And then starting in 2017, I gained a lot of insight into the foreign service lifestyle. And when we moved back in 2019, I met Laura Needle, who's a colleague of mine at TTR Sotheby's and who's also an EFM. And we were getting a lot of requests from friends of ours in the Forest Service about who we would recommend as agents to help them with buying houses here and abroad and rentals and, everything real estate. And we thought, wow, we're really uniquely positioned to help people in this way because we both know real estate really well. We're both EFMs and we're also both from DC. So we know this market really well. And so we launched Diplomatic Quarters this summer to fill that need.
Now you're doing two things together.
I'm doing AdminiSaver by myself.
So AdminiSaver is just you. There's no other staff people?
Correct.
Wow. And how many agents or how many clients do you have with AdminiSaver?
Well, it's seasonal.
Okay.
It comes and goes, but probably around 30.
Yeah.
Wow.
So tell me about your primary audience for this then. Obviously, we know that DC is like a great location to try this business and work on this business. What's your goal and how do you help to consult and help these types of clients?
Sure. So our goal is to become the number one stop for people in foreign service, military, DOD, anybody who's working for government, moving overseas and moving back for all of their real estate needs. So we are partnering with short-term housing providers like Stay Attaché, with wonderful real estate agents like yourself, especially those who know the foreign service as well. And then we also hope to partner with lenders, property managers, moving companies, everything that somebody would need coming back to DC or leaving again.
And so which areas, you mentioned DC, but I'm assuming these foreign service people are coming back in all sorts of different places, or is it mostly they're coming back to the DC area?
That's true. So most of them are coming back to the DMV, I would say. But we do hope to expand in the future to other key markets across the U.S.
Mm-hmm. So what's the process from when somebody, so you had this idea and what happened next? Tell us about, the
Sure.
From idea to the project.
Yes. So we launched pretty quickly. We knew the market that we were serving and we knew pretty much what they would want. So we started with a website. We thought it would be really important for people to be able to search for a property themselves without, having to sign up for an agent yet. So on our site, diplomaticquarters.com, people can go, they can search for rentals, they can search for properties for sale, and they can kind of follow the market, because a lot of people are still abroad when they're thinking about moving back, and they want to get a sense for the market before they want to commit to an agent. So I'd say that would be the first step. We also have a Facebook group, Diplomatic Quarters, that people can join and talk to each other about real estate and hear from us. And also on our website is a blog with key topics that we think people are curious about before they get into the market. So I'd say the first step would be joining our Facebook group, going to the website, thinking about where they want to live, figuring out a budget, and then reaching out to us to be connected with an agent who could help them through the rest of the process.
So obviously then, as a website where you're getting traffic from people looking at listings, you have an IDX, and it's sort of a referral business as well, right? Because you and your business partner are both licensed.
That's right. We're both licensed, but we're not doing the selling ourselves, because we think we can serve more people if we connect with other agents.
Mm-hmm. So how are you picking the agents? So how are you building the relationship of the people on the ground? So you're connecting them with the lead, and then, tell me about that.
That's right. So we already have a pretty wide base of agents who Lauren and I have worked with over the years, but we're also trying to connect with EFMs who are doing this work because they know the lifestyle extremely well. So we're working with you because obviously you have a background as a third culture kid. And Becca Zemek is a EFM who works in Nova, who we've partnered with. So we're just, we're reaching out to the community to see who is an EFM, who's a realtor, and then we're doing our part to, make sure that they have experience in the business also, of course. But we want to work with neighborhood experts who also understand the foreign service lifestyle.
Teddy, you just used the term third culture kid, and you referred to Mattia as a third culture kid, and it's here on my sheet, and I've never heard of it.
Oh,
Me neither. I've been named something that I'm like, what is this?
Sorry to label you.
No, it's all good. Please explain. Please enlighten me.
A third culture kid is a kid who grows up in other cultures around the world. So it would be the children of foreign service diplomats.
Got it.
Kids who are raised in another country, not their own.
Right.
And so that's like a third culture unto its own.
Exactly.
So that's right. I am a TCK.
Yes.
Like that, TCK.
Yeah. So tell us about your background.
Yeah. So this is interesting because my dad was a diplomat for the Italian embassy prior to me being born. And so my parents were in Italy. My dad got stationed here in Washington, D.C. And then my brother and I were both born here. In the U.S., and then shortly thereafter, about 3 years old, we moved back to Italy. My dad was in the military, and then when I was 12, so grew up in Italy until I was 12, and then we moved back here. Again, my dad had a choice. I remember very clearly. He came up to us and said, "We want to go back to the embassy, and here are our choices." It was Tokyo, Russia, and D.C. And of course, my dad, he was like, really, D.C. is my first choice. He had already been there, so he wanted to go back. We were born there, so it made a lot of sense. And we did get stationed there again. And then we were supposed to be there for only 4 years and move back. And here I am. So, but it was interesting. I was just talking to him this morning because the first time around when we moved to Italy, when my parents moved to Italy before we were born, I asked them, how did you find a place? My parents were renting in Kensington on Dresden Street, a little house. I remember it, not very well, but I do remember it. And he said, essentially, it was just a friend of a friend that helped them because, you're coming to a foreign country. You know the language-ish. My parents kind of knew the language, but not much. You have no credit score. You don't have a social security number. And we know that for rentals, especially in this area, there's a vigorous background checks and all sorts of things that you got to do. And so a friend essentially helped them, vouched for them, was a guarantor because they didn't have, it was first week being in the U.S. And, according to him, still there's no one at the Italian embassy that helps all these people when they're coming in and out. It's sort of still, so I think your program and what you're doing with Diplomatic Quarters would be a huge benefit in this particular case, for sure.
Yeah, on the consultancy side, I mean, really even finding like a niche expert for each of these countries, because I get asked that a lot. It's like, oh, do you work with diplomats? And it's like, of course, we work with everyone who comes to us for business, but some of these different foreign nationals have different types of needs and different tendencies, as we found out. So.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, we would love to expand into that market someday too, of course.
And so as your project is growing, are you contacting, I want to know how the people are getting to you. Are you going to each embassy overseas and say, here we are, here's our pamphlet, here's a brochure of how we can help your people, please spread it around? And tell me a little bit about the marketing aspect of this, or how are people getting to your website aside from the Facebook group?
Well, you say aside from Facebook, but actually Facebook is a huge marketplace for this community. There's a number of different groups. So in addition to Facebook, there is an entity called the Global Community Services Liaison, the GCLO. And they're the community center, if you will, for people coming to the U.S. looking for real estate and what to do in their community, things like that. And then at each post, there's the CLO, which is the Community Liaison Office. So our goal would be to connect with the GCLO, to be connected to each of the CLOs, to hang a pamphlet or give an informational session to help them understand what we're about so that we can help people when they come back to the U.S.
Got it. And this seems focused on the United States. Do you think that eventually you're going to try to expand to other countries and their embassies?
And I'm glad that you asked that, because we actually already have connected somebody with an agent abroad. And that's part of why we're so happy to be partnered with Sotheby's, because they're an international brokerage. And people do really enjoy their time at Post and want to buy property there sometimes. So we work through our connections through Sotheby's and also through other agencies to help people abroad as well.
So what challenges do agents face when they're working with diplomatic or military type clients? Like what are things that they need to look out for?
Yes. So I'd say the biggest one is that oftentimes the client will be abroad. So they're really relying on the agent to be their eyes and ears on the ground. They're going to be requesting FaceTime tours. They're going to be in a different time zone when they're requesting that tour. They probably need to be connected with a lender who can handle all the paperwork from abroad. They're going to need a Zoom notary. They'll probably need to close abroad, and maybe they'll come back, for the showing or maybe for the home inspection to make sure that they really do want to buy the house. But I think most of the transaction will be virtual. And they need an agent that they can trust, not someone who just thinks, oh, well, they're abroad, so I'll offload the property I had on the market for 6 months because they won't know better. They really need somebody who knows the market, who they can trust to help them with that.
I had an experience with a couple that was stationed in Germany. It just reminded me of this. This was about 2 years ago, and everything we did, they were moving back for the State Department, so DC area, and everything we did was through FaceTime. And I mean, everything that we did was through FaceTime. I never met them, and when we finally found the house that they liked, they put an offer on it, and I thought that they would eventually fly down, maybe for the inspection, just to see it. Never did. They they just completely trusted me. They had never met me before either. And I thought, wow, this is
a lot of trust.
Very great. And I thought, I really hope that they like this house when they walk in, and I made sure that when I was FaceTiming every angle of the house, it was perfect. But they bought it sight unseen. They love it. They're still in there. But they had to find somebody that they really trust. And it was scary for me, because I thought, well, what if they don't like this house? Or what if I represented something, of course, not on purpose, but, and it had a pool. The house had a pool too, which was very interesting. And I thought, well, I don't know, let's see.
I had a client a couple years ago. He bought and sold his house that same way with me. He bought the house completely sight unseen. He was Department of Justice, but, working overseas. And, he would call me. I knew him from before. We had been neighbors in another building. So we did have a relationship. But I went and looked at all these houses over FaceTime for him. And the one they bought, the house itself was, I would never have bought that house sight unseen, because houses are complicated.
I don't think I would ever buy a house sight unseen.
It's a little crazy because you don't really know, like, the house,
How does
especially
it
in DC, the
feel?
house next door,
Yeah,
or
right.
like what's in the alleyway behind it,
Right.
things you can't really like know or feel.
For sure.
But he was really confident, and it ended up working out for him. But it was a multiple offer situation. We got it done for him, and then they did move into the house for a couple years, and then they went back overseas, and by the time like it was ready for sale, they had been gone for months. So the whole transaction, everything happened obviously without them here and in another time zone, like literally like 12 hours away.
Yeah. I don't know if I would call it a challenge, but another opportunity maybe is that a lot of people in this lifestyle who are buying houses are definitely looking for it to be an investment property, because they're probably going to be transferred again overseas in 2 to 3, maybe 5 years, and they will need to rent out the house. So they're also looking for property that is rentable, where they can get that investment return from it as well.
Mm. And for the rental market, I'm sure some of these people, do you find that a lot of these people are looking for rentals or for somebody to purchase or in between? And for the rental market, is there support from the government? I mean, for positions, do they give an allowance or anything like that in your experience?
So I think it's a mix. Some people will be ready to buy and will see the investment opportunity there. Obviously, the DMV is a more expensive market. So, it just depends on where people are in their career and what they can afford. But in some cases, I think, the rental allowance is tricky. Some people will be back for something called TDY, which is temporary duty. And in that case, oftentimes they will have money from the government. And so they can't afford more, or they want to get creative with the landlord about how to spend that, because maybe they'll have it for the first 3 months, but not the whole 6 months, So looking for creative ways to spend that. And we want to work with agents who are comfortable with that idea, obviously.
Mattia, I have a question for you. How often do you work with diplomatic type buyers or VA loans? Like, tell me a little about your experience.
My guess, probably like 3 or 4 times a year,
Mm-hmm.
a VA loan comes around, and maybe in some instances it's been a diplomat or foreign service person moving back, or a military person already in place. And VA loans are a great product for our vets and the military and so forth. But, I've found there's challenges that go with the VA loan, particularly in DC in a multiple offer situation. It's a huge challenge. I mean, I've written multiple offers with the VA loan, and no matter what you do, you're just not, especially in a condo building, because the condo building, even more than a house, the building has to be VA approved. If it's not VA approved, we have to get the building VA approved, which that's a whole other question mark. Will it be VA approved? The VA has a lot of requirements, fairly so, I think, but in certain instances, it just makes it quite complicated for people to go through with it.
But I feel like the program has gotten better, and also it's a market condition thing too in terms of the VA loan. I think the VA loan is like one of the best products there is.
For sure.
Right. And I got fortunate with some clients like a few years ago buying in new condo buildings where everything was already VA approved. They had plenty of units to sell, so we were able to get those VA loans done. Another interesting fact, those VA loans were assignable.
Okay.
So I actually I almost got a deal done with the assignment of a VA loan, but at 2.75%. There's still some floating out there from the pandemic era.
Assume it, and I'm not sure exactly. I haven't dealt with that, an assumable one. A non-VA person can assume it. Is that
It
right?
is possible, yes. A non-VA person can assume a VA loan.
A VA loan, which is like, okay, what? Interesting. I think the big issue is a lot with the appraisal. The appraisal, because it's
Right.
the appraisal is a half inspection. There's requirements that the VA has
And you
to
can't
go
waive
through.
You can't waive
You can't waive it. But what I found in Virginia, particularly as a listing agent, lots of VA loans, because I think most of these people want to be in the suburbs instead of the city. And there's a new thing that people are writing now. They would put the VA loan financing contingency in there / appraisal, must have it. And then they would still do an addendum that would say the buyer would pay up to X if in the case of a low appraisal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay with the VA. I mean, ultimately, it's the buyer's money, right? They should be able to do what they want to do with it if they
Absolutely.
really want the house.
But the mechanics of the way the contingency is written. But yeah, I feel like they made the program a little more palatable for sellers.
I absolutely agree.
So
yeah.
great product, obviously.
Yeah. So do you at diplomatic quarters, you have lenders that you work with, or, if people are looking for a lender, are there people that you've worked with, or how does that work?
Yes, there are a few that we can recommend. And we've also found that the agents that we partner with have lenders that they're very familiar with and prefer to lend to their agents because they've, had great experiences with them over the years.
For this couple from Germany, everything was done while they were in Germany, from pre-approval to loan approval to the closing. Everything was done remotely. And I think pre-COVID, this was not a thing.
Not as
we
easy.
could not do this. I mean, it's particularly the lenders. If you had a loan, you had to be there signing in person, all sorts of crazy things. But now it's become so easy that everybody can sign for wherever they want, really, or they'll send you the documents. Everything is virtual. It's a huge change, and I think it's a huge benefit for both sellers and buyers and the community because it's much easier. Right?
Oh, it speeds up the business for everyone, but particularly for this type of niche market.
Yeah, it's really been an advantage to our community for sure.
So one confusing point we were just saying about getting loan docs signed and everything, if with the right kind of lender and title partner, the power of attorney can be assigned all remotely if you have the right people working on this. And your company aims to make sure that people have those correct connections.
Right. So if you're working with an agent who understands the market and the needs of the client really well, they could connect you with a local power of attorney so that even if the VA loan requires someone to be on site in person, you can assign that power to somebody to be there for you so you don't actually have to fly back.
Right.
That's impressive. I mean, it's a huge burden off your shoulders to be able to do that. And so having worked with some of these people that fit these profiles, it's a lot. Some of them have had to come to a new area that they have no idea where they are. And it's sort of exciting because there's a lot of education that you have to go through with them. And, I'm thinking of when I first moved back to the U.S. from what my parents did, or the first time rather, they didn't know where they were. I mean, they had no idea. And so it's been exciting to work with some of these people because it's a new chapter for them. I think some of them are more used to it than others. So they're like, yeah, we'll figure it out, especially if they've moved a lot throughout the world. But if it's their first big move, it's challenging. I mean, I remember when we moved back and we flew back, we arrived in the U.S. and 1 week after we landed, I was in public school. And I didn't speak any English. I didn't know where I was. I was crying really, really bad. This was the 7th grade. It's already, 7th grade is a tough time, man. And I was like, what are these lockers? We don't have these in Italy. No one was talking to me because I was in Montgomery County, Maryland, which had plenty of diplomats, foreign people. It was not cool to be, I was in ESL class and I had 20 of us sitting there. It was not very cool. So it's challenging, and it's particularly for the kids. Some personalities more than others. My brother was younger than me. He didn't care. He was, going out, talking to people. I was the reserved one, didn't speak for 2 years. I didn't want to, we almost moved back actually to Italy because it was so tough. But, it takes a certain care and a certain person to help these people through this transition because it's a major one.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it depends on who's moving here. Like when we moved to Asia, we had just gotten married. We were, a couple, no kids, whatever. We got there and, we were lucky because our agency assigned us housing. So we didn't have to deal with the local market. We didn't have to pay rent. That was a great perk. But when we arrived, it wasn't ready yet. So, they put us up in a hotel, which for us was fine. But if you're a family with kids, with pets, and you have the luggage that you carried on the plane, you don't have any of your household effects yet, that can be a really stressful time. So, and if you're coming to the U.S., the D.C. area, and you've worked with an agent to find your housing, that's your connection to the community. So it really matters who you hire for that service and that they can, tell you what parks to go to or what restaurants to try, or connect you with other families with kids even, and help you learn how to be part of that community.
So when you were overseas in Asia, I don't know, can you say what country you were in?
Officially, no.
Oh, okay. So when you got there, though, you said you were renting. They were helping you with housing. Was buying an option for you there? Did you think about that?
We didn't look into it at first. Then we did. We never worked with a realtor, but we learned that the country that we were in has more strict rules about foreigners buying property there. So maybe you can speak to the property rights in the U.S., because my understanding is that it's one of the safest places to invest your money in the world in terms of real estate.
Of course. Well known for that.
Yeah.
Super safe.
Yeah, so it's a great investment here, and a lot of people who, are already Americans and working for the government want to take part in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think some of my dad's colleagues at the embassy, some of them did buy with an idea for investment. It became challenging, of course, once you move to another country and then you manage it if you don't have a management company or anything like that. But some of them still have properties in this area, particularly the DMV. It's just really, really strong. Speaking of the DMV and transitions, do you think that with an upcoming change in administration, there will be an influx of people needing to move, having to move, new people? Do you think that your website and the need for your website will increase?
I think it will. We saw this last time with this administration also. A lot of people came in. They bought even before they were confirmed their appointments. So that, there's a lot of money with this administration. And I think you can probably speak to that better than me, but I think people will move here. They will buy more property. This is a strong market. It tends to stay a strong market because of the government. So people want to buy here, and a lot of them have to live here. So, it makes sense to invest in that way. And our website can be really helpful for that, because it's a great place to start looking at the market, see what's available, see how the market has changed recently,
But Teddy, real estate. Tell me about your real estate background. Tell us about how you started in the business and everything.
I've been in the business for 10 years. I actually started working for my mom and her partner, Christopher Ritzert and Christy Weiss.
They've been on our show.
Weiss Partners, yes, they have, 2 years ago. And they're in the Georgetown Sotheby's office. So I worked with them for 3 years as an executive assistant. And I learned that lots of agents are persons, and I am a paper person. So I thought about
people and paper.
People and paper,
nice.
yeah. So
add that to TCK.
Yeah, acronym for that.
Yeah, well, I learned very quickly that I'm not a salesperson. I really like to be behind the computer supporting. I used to say that, Batman had Alfred and I was their Alfred. So,
yeah.
And that's why I ended up starting Administaver, because I really like to be more in the background. And I think that really served diplomatic quarters, because I know so many agents through my other business. So I know how people operate. I know which markets they're specialists in, and I can help connect people in that way.
I can imagine that your mom and Christopher have probably dealt with a good amount of diplomats or people, with the kind of business that they do, right?
They have, yes. And I gained some experience from that before moving overseas. So that was helpful too.
Well, look, the line about, DC and the U.S. market being a safe place to invest your money, that's like realtor speak. So it comes right from the source right there.
Yes.
I know you're well trained. I'm also thinking of a way to utilize Administaver with diplomatic quarters. Obviously, the idea is to make sure you're getting the right connections with the right agents. Obviously, if the agents are using Administaver, then they've got the best service for all of their background work.
Yes, yes.
Makes sense to me. So, good job.
Thanks.
Teddy, one thing I was thinking about was for these types of clients, security is extremely important. And, you're talking about your business Administaver. That's your business, how you're handling details of transactions, bank accounts, social security numbers. There's all kinds of information on our contracts and forms when we're sending things around. What about agents who use, they have assistants who are overseas, but it could be in a foreign country, in a bank of assistants? I'm not saying that they're not secure. I don't know, but the security risk goes up.
Yes, that's a great question. And it really matters to our clientele. A lot of them have security clearances. They really care about where their information is shared. So we will only work with agents that we've vetted and we know that they're using local admin people. So if they have a bigger staff or they need to work with assistants, we make sure that all of those people are in the U.S.
So you're doing some vetting. You're not you're not like selling leads to whomever.
No,
right?
We won't sell our leads. It's really important to us that we know the agents and also that we know our clients and that we're connecting them in a secure way.
Right.
So it's really important to us at diplomatic quarters that we know who our agents are working with at every layer of the transaction. And if they don't have local administrative staff, we're happy to provide that service through Administaver to them because we want to keep all that documentation secure at every layer.
Teddy, it's great to see you. Thanks for coming down to the studio today.
Yeah.
Good to see you guys too.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
Mattia's got some rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
He's going to test you
I know. These
your
are hard. I don't know
government,
any of these.
federal government jargon acronyms.
Uh-oh,
okay?
Are you
word
ready for
salad.
this?
Okay.
All right. PCS.
Okay, I know that one. That's permanent change of station.
Correct. TDY.
TDY, temporary duty.
Correct. UAB.
UAB is your unaccompanied baggage.
What does that mean?
That
Yeah.
is, there's two
Unaccompanied
types.
air baggage.
Yeah, there's two types of baggage that your stuff gets split into. Actually, three. Some of it goes into a storage unit, like your bigger furniture that you wouldn't need at post. Some of it comes within a couple weeks. That's the UAB. So that's a smaller amount of luggage. You want to put like some kitchen equipment in there, maybe some towels, your sheets, things like that.
Gets mailed.
It gets mailed and you get it sooner. And then your HHE is your household effects, and that is going to come much later. You don't know when you're going to get that. And that would be your furniture and everything else.
And that's coming
gets
in
packed
a
up.
huge
Shipping container.
That's coming in a shipping container.
God, I remember this. It was snowing and it was December and it was a month after we had arrived in our house. And all I wanted
That's
was
lucky.
my stuff. Yeah.
A month is short.
Yeah. And, our car was in there. Our piano was in there.
Exactly.
Everything was in there. And it, finally came and we were looking outside the window like, oh, my God, it's here.
Yeah,
And,
it's Christmas
and
Day.
finally our house was full of stuff. It was great.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay. How about FSO?
That's
this
Foreign
is
Service
easy.
Officer. Yeah, that's easy. That's what my spouse
And one
was.
more. Oh, we already did that one.
All right. Well, I think you passed the test.
Thank
did.
you.
All right. Okay, Teddy, great. Thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you so
me.
much, Teddy. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Keyed In with your hosts, Max and Brent, unlocking the minds of the industry's top real estate professionals. For more information on selling your home, find us online at keyedinpodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Keyed In on Apple Podcasts or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Follow us on Instagram at Keyed In Podcast, at Rabin Max, and at Brent E. Jackson. And follow Max on TikTok at MaxwellRabin_properties.